with humbleness and piety, and creatures do zikr all the time, here and there. La 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 la, la 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 la.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, dear viewers, joining us on our live program here and there. And this is our Ramadan special for 2017. Now, dear viewers, for those who've been following us, every day we bring forward a unique discussion every night. And we're going to continue this up until the end of Ramadan. Our discussion today is going to be about generosity and giving. Now, these are two qualities that Allah Almighty would like to see in every believer. So much so that Allah is the one who is described as being the most generous, Al-Karim. Allah is the one who is described as being the most giving, Al-Wahhab. So we can see that these are emanating from the names and attributes of Allah. Not just that, but the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was described that in this blessed month he was so generous that he was described as being a wind or a breeze from the heavens. Dear viewers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells in the Holy Quran, the key, the success, that generosity will lead us into paradise. Allah tells us, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ, that you will not attain al-bir, which is righteousness, or even paradise, until, here comes the secret, until you give from the wealth that you love. You see how the two are connected, entering into paradise and giving from wealth that you love. But generosity is not just through wealth. We can be generous through our time, through other means as well. So let us introduce our guests, our co-presenters, and we can go into the discussion. And also don't forget that the lines are open. We'd like to hear your comments on the subject as well. How can we be more generous? And who is more deserving of our generosity as well? So do call us. Our numbers will run across the screens, and also our Skype address is there as well, Huda_TV. So let's turn to my right, where we have Brother Omar sitting next to me here. I'd like to welcome you to the program, Brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so much, Brother Junaid. Happy to be with you and with Brother Ali, like always. And I would like to also welcome dear viewers for tuning in also for a new episode. And I would like to start by also an experiment that was done on children. So this experiment was done on children to see how generous or how not generous people are. Okay. So they went to children and they just asked basic question to each child separately. If I give you $1 and I will give your mate another $1, would you accept this? So of course the common sense is, sure, go ahead. So of course they accepted this, almost 100%.
Okay.
Okay. They just updated the $1 to $2. You take $2, the other child takes $2. They accepted. So here's the trick. You're going to take $1 and your mate is going to take $1, or you take $2 and he's going to take $3. So you're going to be increased. So maybe I would like to ask you, Brother Junaid, so would you accept this or not? The first choice is you take $1, and I'm going to take $1 also.
Sure.
The same amount. Yeah, the same amount. Or you take, it's going to be increased. You take 2, but the caveat is I'm going to take 3.
Okay.
Would you accept this?
Yeah, I'll take 2. You can have 3.
That's common sense.
Yeah.
But most of the children, they didn't accept this.
Okay.
They said no. They wanted to punish the other person. No, we don't want him to be increased. So the conclusion of this experiment is that when people become not generous, even on the thought level, that I don't want Junaid, Brother Junaid, or Brother Ali to be increased, like, and the amount of money or so on, it's childish and primitive.
Okay, Brother Omar, hold your thought, please. We've got a phone call coming from Mecca. So let's take this and we come back. We are with the Sister Aisha calling us from Mecca. Assalamu alaikum, Sister.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, brother?
Alhamdulillah. How are you, Aisha?
Alhamdulillah. I just calling. I want to say Ramadan Mubarak to you all making Huda TV. I am late, I know, but
Ramadan Mubarak to you and your family as well.
Jazakumullah khairan to you all.
Okay, Sister Aisha, do you have any question you would like to ask or any comment further?
No, I have no question. I just want to say Ramadan Mubarak.
Okay, thank you very much. From Huda TV, Ramadan Mubarak to you as well. Brother Omar, your experiment.
No problem. So the conclusion is that when people, they don't become generous to the basic nature of people, that they are not generous in the beginning as children. But when they are brought up, actually the experiment was updated, and after those children grew up a little bit, and maybe they reach to 10 years old, 15 years old, and so on, they accepted what Brother Junaid exactly told me, that, okay, I will take 2, and Brother Omar will take 3, and there is no problem. So that means teaching, religion, society, all of this is going to morph the person and change his basic, primitive nature that I'm not going to give my friend or my brother or my sister, and so on and so forth.
All right, very nice. Omar, you surprise us every time with the opening facts and information.
You're becoming our social scientist.
All right, if you could turn to Brother Ali Coleman here. Brother, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. And welcome to another episode of Here and There. As Brother Junaid so well introduced the program today, it's our Ramadan show, where we look at various topics and various Muslim communities and countries to learn about how Ramadan is observed and Islam generally. Tonight's topic is about generosity. This is a very great and important human virtue. It is an active virtue, unlike other forms of positively influencing the people around us in a passive way, like maybe I'm sitting quietly reading the Quran. That may have an impression on someone.
Okay.
But generosity requires action. And so I look forward to getting into this conversation with all of you and with our guest, Brother, or Sheikh, I can say.
Sheikh, brother
Kareem. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think he's introduced you to the program, Brother Kareem. Welcome you and say assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As always, it's a pleasure to be on Huda in general and on this show specifically. In these blessed nights, 10 nights have passed.
SubhanAllah.
So subhanallah, the month is running fast. So it's still a chance. There's 20 days to go, and so inshallah we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless these days and to make it a starting point for true change to the true path and to our real goal, which is the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Jannah, inshallah, al-Firdaus, inshallah, with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as we were mentioning, that one of the pathways to the Jannah is generosity. And it's the Prophet ﷺ says, وَالصَّدَقَةُ بُرْهَانٌ.
Okay.
It is a true
Proof or evidence.
It's evidence of your iman.
Okay.
Because in general, sadaqat or giving out charity or being generous is a sign of being bigger than yourself. Whether it's through taking care of other people, which is hadith Prophet ﷺ, وَاللَّهُ لَا يَؤْمِنُ أَحَدُكُمْ حَتَّى يُحِبُّ لِأَخِيهِ مَا يُحِبُّ لِنَفْسِهِ. That you do not, none of you truly believe until you love for your brother or your sister what you truly believe, what you want for yourself. And it's also a sign of iman that all of this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you've got, you're going to be asked about it, so you have obligations which you need to fulfill, whether it's obligations which you're punished for not doing, like zakah, which is obligatory, or things which are, you're doing extras, but you know that there will be a reward for it. So when we talk about generosity, and we'll go through the episode today, is that it's a true understanding that all of this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَآتُوهُم مِّن مَالِ اللَّهِ الَّذِي آتَاكُمْ. This is a very, very important rule. وَآتُوهُم مِّن مَالِ اللَّهِ, and give out in charity from the money that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has bestowed upon you. And this is a concept that when we go through the whole episode, we need to understand that anything, وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ, and what you have from blessings, this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore we need to give it to its original source, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay. Excellent. Also, sure, go ahead.
No, did you have some? Because I want to relate what the Brother Kareem and Brother Omar said to connect the two comments.
Go for it.
I really like these studies that you give us, Brother Omar.
Thank you so much.
And it relates to some readings that I had done earlier about how early in life we as human beings develop a sense of justice. Oftentimes, I think all of us can relate to how children at a very young age have a sense of what right and wrong is when it comes to what is fair. So instead of using dollars or pounds or whatever, let's use a cookie or a biscuit or whatever. If we break it into pieces, and it's not equal pieces, it could potentially set up a little conflict because your piece is bigger than my piece. So there's a sense of justice that we have. But then Brother Kareem is saying that with time, we develop a sense of social responsibility, that we develop a sense that it's not all about us. We become less selfish, and especially if the redistribution is in our own hands.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting.
Nice, very nice.
So when you have the authority or the ability to distribute, you become more fair. Would you say that?
Well, maybe we feel a sense of
Empowerment.
for sure, and that we can ensure that it's done perhaps more just than if it just happens without our awareness of it.
All right, excellent. My question is, before we start looking at the different ways in which we can be generous and start looking at the verses and so on and so forth, what's the reason behind? It's a very obvious question, but what's the reason behind us being generous generally, but at the same time in Ramadan in specific? Why are we encouraged to be generous?
We're encouraged to be generous because, as we just mentioned, it's a sign of our true belief that we are the representatives of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this earth. As we mentioned in the verse, وَآتُوهُ مِن مَالِ اللَّهِ الَّذِي آتَاكُمْ. We're going to keep on repeating this verse so many times today because the whole concept, not just in the mal, in the money, and the wealth, it's everything. Any time you have to give, there is a sadaqah on every single blessing that you have. And as the scholars talked about, it should be from its kind. And we'll talk about this more in details, but if you've got knowledge, then you should give out from knowledge. You've got strength, you need to give out from strength. You need to, if it's money, if it's kids, whatever it is, if your eyesight, then you need to protect your eyesight and read proper things. Everything, there is a sadaqah on the blessing that you have. And there's a correlation in the hadith that you mentioned with the Prophet ﷺ in Ramadan. In the Prophet ﷺ كان أجود الناس في الخير. He was the most generous person in doing good in general in the hadith. وكان أجود ما يكون في رمضان حين يلقاه جبريل يتدارسون القرآن. And he was the most generous in Ramadan when he would meet up with Jibreel alayhi salam every night and they would recite the Quran. And the correlation is that within the scope of generosity, the month itself, as-suhbah salihah, good companionship, lots of Quran, lots of good deeds, this increases our iman. And when our iman increases, we're more likely to give out knowing that there will be a bigger reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We become more miserly after it because our iman goes down. So even though we believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward us, but we're not really that sure.
But Brother Kim, you're saying that, of course, that every bounty and blessing is from Allah. But what if somebody says, but I just, woke up early, I made my effort, I studied hard, I had the skills, I earned it. So why are you telling me that it goes back to God? Of course, I'm not asking this question on my behalf. Because this is actually, that was the question or the comment of Qarun in the Quran. He said this, that إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ. So it was the knowledge, my knowledge and skill, and my doctorate or my PhD in Harvard or something like this. So what's your response, Brother?
He woke up early, and that would be enough. The idea that he woke up, I mean, and that's
perfect answer.
And that's it. And he woke up that nobody controls their waking up. You just wake up.
He doesn't own his
and nothing
life.
Just happens. You wake up because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided that you need to wake up. You can.
So the life, the basic.
Exactly. The basic, the essence of all of this would not have been. And then he woke up and he could walk, he could read, he can talk, he could understand. Right. All of these things, he has no control over this. All of this, these are things. In the sam'a wal absar wal afida. All of these are blessings. The hearing and the heart, the contemplation, the seeing. All of these are blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you can't. What we do is that we negate all of this and we just go to the PhD as if this just happened.
And if I can add that also, these matters, these types of questions, ultimately come down to a matter of choice. We can choose to believe that it's from Allah, as you so well described, or choose to think that it's all coincidence, or my own effort, even though I don't control my very breath. Somehow it's coincidence. It's a choice. It's a decision to remain faithful.
Exactly, and this is the iman part. The whole idea of iman is based on this, because of after this, then one person feels that they have an obligation because this is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The other person, like Qarun, he thinks that it's mine. I don't need to give anyone anything. This is my money. And the other person, وَآتُوهُ مِن مَالِ اللَّهِ الَّذِي آتَاكُمْ. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's money, which He has given me as a responsibility, and I've got obligations because this is borrowed money. And I will be asked about this. All of this comes in within the frame of iman. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he talks about وَمَالُ فِيمَا اكْتَسَبَهُ وَفِيمَا أَنْفَقُهُ, his money, where did he get it from? And how did he spend it? if you believe in this concept that there will be a day of judgment and you will be held accountable, then you will, as a blessing in terms of wealth and money, you feel that, am I getting it from the right source? And am I giving it out to the right people?
Okay.
And it also goes back to the Prophet that he used to say something like this, a prayer like this, Allahumma rzuqni like ilman nafi'an, which means like to give me, provide me, O Allah, with the like beneficial knowledge. And that means, by contrast, that there is knowledge that is not beneficial. So for Qarun or anyone, by that sense, he can do his effort, but every time he's not going to the beneficial knowledge because he doesn't have blessing from Allah.
Okay.
So in the end, the knowledge that is beneficial, it's not by my own effort in the end. So it comes back to the tawfiq, or that Allah is making.
There's another very interesting point here as well, and if you look at how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages all to be generous, we can see that Islam is a social religion. That it's not one that encourages someone to sit in the corner of their rooms and to just pick up the Quran and to pick up their beads and to remain there. But it's one that's encouraging people to get out there and to help the weak, to help the vulnerable. And it's a social religion. I mean, that element of it is really welcoming and really warm, isn't it?
And that's why one of the pillars of Islam is related to money. That's why zakah is one of the pillars. So if money wasn't that important to work in it, like for instance, and it's part of generosity to give out money, so it wouldn't be one of the pillars.
Allah's means for exacting His will in our lives is through other people. It doesn't, things just don't materialize from thin air. He wants us to be generous. I mean, money could fall from the sky, but it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah. Okay. And they also, the very fact of like the issue of zakat, it's the right of the people. So even though it's the money that you've earned, it's actually described as being the right of the people. So you're actually holding other people's wealth, and that's what's considered to be the charity. That's really, if you visualize that, it's very powerful.
Sure, and that makes us like lose the arrogance part. Like we don't feel like, okay, I'm giving you. I need him. I need the poor person because he is just being a cause that Allah is going to accept my good deeds. So I can see him like, oh, you're helping me to like get Allah's forgiveness.
Brother Kareem, I'd like to touch on something, or elaborate on something you touched on. That is that the thing with which we are to be generous with is not limited to money. It's any resource, as you said. I'd like to give a story given by Prophet Isa, peace be upon him, in the New Testament. It's in the 10th chapter of Luke, the Gospel according to Luke. And the story is one of the most well-known stories that Prophet Isa told during his lifetime, the Good Samaritan. I don't know if you're aware of it, but it's a story about a man who was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho, I believe it was. And on the way, he was robbed. He was beaten by the robbers and left for dead, and all his goods were taken. The next day, this happened at nighttime, the next day, a temple priest came walking by, saw his body lying on the ground, crossed the street, crossed the road to the other side to avoid him, and continued on his way.
Okay.
That was a temple priest. Then a Levite. This is the tribe of the ancient Jews who assisted the temple priests in various ways, did the same thing. Saw the body, crossed the other side to avoid him, and continued on his way. The third man was a Samaritan, a commoner. And he saw the body, approached him, cleaned him up with the materials that he had, oil and vinegar or wine, whichever it was, to soothe his wounds, put him on his donkey, took him to an inn, paid the tab for the inn, and asked them to give care and left money. So Jesus said that this story, this is just a story that he's using to illustrate what it means to be a good neighbor. Okay. This parable is called the Good Samaritan. And so Jesus asks one of the Jews that's questioning him about how to enter paradise. He said, how do I enter paradise? He says, by following the law, loving God with your full heart, and being good to your neighbors, doing unto your neighbors as you'd like to have done unto you. So the man asks Jesus, who is my neighbor then? All right. So this is when he gives the story, Jesus does, peace be upon him, that the neighbor is the one who does like this Samaritan did, and not like the Levite or the high priest. So it's not, repeatedly we see that it's about not just ticking off the things to do to please Allah, to please God, but a certain fear and love for the spirit of the law that we're looking for, inshallah. Yeah.
So it's that connection with the external as well as the internal. So your religiosity doesn't just stop with your actions, but it goes right into the heart.
And he demonstrates for us through this story that not only was he given money, he gave time, he gave a number of different resources to this man who was his neighbor, who had been victimized and was in great need. He gave time, he gave his energy, he gave money, and gave care to this wounded, nearly or half-dead man.
Okay, excellent. I want to pick up on that if we can. So, I mean, we've discussed the issues of giving wealth. I think that's fairly obvious. How then can we be generous, Brother Kareem, with our time? What other aspects can we get involved in?
I'll just mention a follow-up on this, and I'll link it to this. One of the statements that's very popular is the idea that you should do to the other person what you feel should be done to you. And one of my friends, he was commenting on this, and he said, I think there's a better extension of this, is that we should do to others what they would like to be done to them.
Okay.
And this is very important, because lots of times we do something that I like and I give it to you, but you don't like it. And especially with the global culture exchange, globalization we're going through, sometimes there's a difference in cultures within the scope of what's acceptable and permissible in Islam. Your needs are different than mine. I can't force upon you what I want and say, this is the way, this is the sadaqah. No, this is not sadaqah. Sadaqah in general, time or wealth or knowledge, I need to give it to you in the way that pleases you. The idea is to make you happy, not me happy. And this is one of the misconceptions about sadaqat in general, is that you're doing it to please yourself.
Yeah.
I'm doing it because it makes me happy. No, that's a byproduct. That's not something, whether it makes you happy or doesn't make you happy, that's not our issue.
Right.
The idea is that, does it make the person you are giving them the sadaqah to, does it make them happy?
It's a good
Does
point.
it make them better off? And this is why you find that the prophets, may Allah SWT be pleased with them, Allah SWT, when He sent them, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِن رَسُولٍ إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِهِ, and Allah SWT, He sent the Rusul with the tongue, with the language of their people. He could have sent them in Arabic and say, well, you need to translate. That's your issue. This is the word of Allah SWT, this is the best thing, and it's your problem that you don't understand. He came in at bilisani qawmi, means that with the culture itself. He came in with a way, and he would, even when you look at the way they talked with their people, it would be very, very similar to their situation. If they were tradesmen, then they would talk in trade terms. If they were herders, then shepherds, then he would talk in terms of that. And the same thing happens here when we're talking about sadaqat. When we're to link it to what we're saying, is that I need to give what people need. I might be coming out, my niyyah is to come out, if we go back to the Good Samaritan, my niyyah is to go out and give money. But then I find someone who needs help picking things up. Then this will be my sadaqah for the day. وَجَعَلْنَا بَعْضُكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ فِتْنَةً أَتَصْبِرُونَ. And we have made you to each other a test. Will you be patient? And this is the problem, is that lots of times I want to force the sadaqah in my own way. And I avoid, because now I was going to give out money. I find the guy, he needs help. No, this isn't what I want today. I want to go and give money. No, you don't get to choose, really. You get the situation. This is a test for you.
This is the problem with the IMF and the World Bank with developing countries. It's like, we'll give you the $10 billion or whatever, but you have to shut down your factories and export raw products.
And follow this guideline, but we're different. We've got farms. No, you have to build factories. We don't want to build factories. We want to have farms. This is the way. But that's outdated for you. But for us, it's not. And this is why you go in and you go to a people and you tell them, okay, you're going to take this type of food, but this is not the type they like. But this, it's more expensive. Who cares? This is the type that they like. You give them what they like to please them. The idea behind sadaqat is that you make the other person better off. Not making yourself better off. And this is the very big difference, is that we're doing this for Allah.
So does that mean that that's why there is a difference between public and secret charity, for instance, and that's in the Quran, like we have both of them, like to do in secret, to give in secret, and also to do this in public. So maybe, as you're saying, Brother Kareem, according to the situation, maybe because for me, I want it to be secret because it's not going to be good, because I don't want people to see me, I want my niyyah or intention to be pure. But in that situation, as Brother Ali was saying, maybe lots of people are going to see the Good Samaritan,
Yes.
and they're going to see him. So, but it's inevitable. He must be seen doing the good thing, and he has to purify his intention, anyways. So, would you touch upon this? Because sometimes people they like fear doing good stuff because people are seeing me, and my intention is not going to be pure. So
And Ibn Qayyim, he talked about this in the tafsir in this, and about because the verse itself, it's clear that that you should. It's better to give sadaqat in secret, but there's also the other aspect of what's the bigger good. Sometimes sadaqat, the standard is that it should be in secret, and this is صدقة السر تطفئ غضب الرب, giving out sadaqah in secret turns off the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the general idea that it should be in secret. It's more sincere, it's closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the other side is that giving it in public, sometimes it could be for teaching people. It could be as an example, setting an example. It could be to show people that this person is a person that deserves sadaqah. There's lots of different aspects, and this is what Ibn Qayyim, this is what Ibn Kathir talked about in his tafsir, is that he says that if there is a bigger good in giving out sadaqat in public, then this is what should be done. And moreover, Suyuti, he talks about giving zakah. He says zakah should be done in public, because zakah is an obligation. There's no reason for you to do it in secret. People assume when they give out zakah, I'll keep it. What's secret? This is like doing salah. This is a fard. This is something that you're not doing anything extra. This is the bare minimum as a Muslim, is that you're giving out your 2.5%.
like covering that I'm fasting Ramadan, for instance.
Exactly.
The amount can be secret, but the giving up
exactly the amount, because that lots of people do it because they really don't want you to know how much money they make or how much money they have. But giving out is, on the contrary, you want to prove that I'm a Muslim, I'm giving out my zakah. Abu Bakr Siddiq, Hurub al-Ridda, one of the main reasons was that they stopped giving zakah.
Yeah.
So zakah isn't something that you can say, well, we gave it in secret. No, I'm sorry, that doesn't count. You give it in and we have to see you giving zakah. And then you can say, this is pure. No, this is an obligation. It's not something you're doing because you're a good Muslim. You're doing it because you're a Muslim. It's an obligation. So this is the difference, and the scholars talked about this a bit, about giving. So I think in general, you have to have sadaqat sir. And I think a couple of days ago, Omar, you mentioned this idea of having a khabi'ah, having something which is secret between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Okay.
And this could be in any different forms of sadaqat, whether it's through wealth or through your physical, helping somebody out. And even if that person, and there's lots and lots of stories of companions who would go and help out elderly or blind people, and they don't know them, they've never seen them, but then when they die, they realize this. And there's so many stories of this, is that when the person dies, suddenly they find that there's 5,000 people who didn't get food, and they come out and say, why didn't we get food? Why didn't you get food? Because this person died and they didn't know it. Or they find them when they're washing them before they bury them, they find the marks on their backs because they used to carry the heavy weights for other people. And nobody knew about this. Nobody knew who they were or what they were doing. They would do this in the darkness of the night. But obviously they had sadaqat, which everybody saw, but there was something which they had private between them and Allah. And because of this, and they use this as this is their bond. This is something which they have. It's like their secret weapon. That comes out when they're really, really stuck. This comes out and they say, oh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if this was really, really sincere for you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, help me do this.
Okay.
And this is usually it's a banker. It's in.
Very nice. I like the idea of having something secret between you and Allah. So when you're in need, you can make dua or call upon that thing to help you to come out of your difficulties. Very nice. Brother Umar, I want to turn to you now and look at some other ways in which we can be generous as well. So we've discussed wealth in some detail. Are there any other ways in which we can be generous?
Other ways to be generous. Well, what came to my mind when we talked about mine and time with our family, quality time.
Okay, very nice.
Because sometimes people get stuck. Some people, of course, that they become money generators. Like, for instance, the father says that I care for my children because the proof for this is that I bring money to them. But he doesn't sit with them, he doesn't listen to them, he doesn't see the problems of the boys and girls, what's going on in your life. There are no advice going on for them. So I think this basic generosity starts at home. Before we say that you do this to other people, it starts at home. Why are you doing it at home?
Okay.
It's a small microcosm, and you stem from this to the bigger
so
society.
we're not just going to limit it to wealth. So many of us complain we don't have time. But if we actually give some time to our beloved ones, then that's being generous.
It's more valuable, actually. Because, money can be compensated for to a great extent. Because just the limit of it. And I think there was one of the studies talking about this in America. They were studying like what is the relationship between money and happiness.
I love it. It's great.
Jazakallah
Your
khair.
studies.
So they wanted to see, okay, to what extent money is going to affect happiness. So
Okay.
they saw that until $75,000 per year, now this is the baseline. Even if you get billions, nothing changes. Because now you have your basic needs, you have a shelter, you have food, you can have your children go to education and study. You don't need
What was
anything
the
else.
75,000?
75,000.
Okay.
And they say, of course, there is a relationship between money and happiness to an extent, but you have to see somewhere else when you when you see like other areas of your life. So
Okay.
because we get caught up with this, if only I become rich, if only I get this position, I'm going to be happy.
But then
No,
after you
it
get
won't
the
happen.
position and the wealth, you still.
It won't happen.
Still complaining. All right, on that note, let's move over and watch a report together talking about generosity in Ramadan, and then when we come back, we'll continue with our discussion.
And in His name we die, here and there.
All the praise and all the glory is due to Allah, and I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is His last prophet and messenger. My dear respected brothers and sisters everywhere, Ramadan for me and for you, Ramadan is a reminder of a couple of things. On the top of them, it actually reminds me of how Islam prospered everywhere and how Islam spread everywhere. There are a lot of people that they think that Islam and the Muslims conquered the whole world, but this is not the case, because the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, before entering all those countries and before dominating the map of the whole universe, they in fact conquered their own souls and their own selves. They had control over themselves. They have disciplined themselves. And the month of Ramadan gave them the chance to have this absolute control over their own desires and their whims. And this is the reason that we have a lot of victories for the Muslims during the month of Ramadan, because the Muslims know how to control themselves. They know how to stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in ibadah, in worship and in devotion. They train themselves on how to be sincere, how to procure and to get the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during this month. Through fasting, through controlling your own self, you will be definitely able to conquer your own desires and be able actually to stand and to step your feet firmly before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second point which reminds me of Ramadan is that it is the month of the Quran. As we know from the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas, that the Prophet ﷺ used to receive Jibreel alayhi salam twice during the month of Ramadan. And Jibreel used to make a mudarasa, a mutual teaching between him and the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet used to recite and Jibreel listen. Jibreel used to recite and the Prophet ﷺ listened to his recitation. It was a memorization and it was a process of reading intensively in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it had actually an impact on the life of the Prophet ﷺ, according to the authentic hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas, that the Prophet ﷺ used to show a high spirit of hospitality, a high spirit of proactivity, The Prophet ﷺ used to be like the wind which is released everywhere in every direction, basically because he received the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is the Quran. In the month of Ramadan, we need to remember the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to renew our own self and our covenant, our promise with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through recitation, properly understanding the meaning of the Quran and implementing its message and translating it into action. This what reminds me basically of Ramadan. So number one, we know how to control ourselves, and number two, we know how to discipline our own habits, and number three, we renew our contract with the Quran, reciting, understanding, and implementing its message. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to shower all His mercy upon all of our hearts and to increase tranquility and iman for all of us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And in His name we die, here and there.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, dear viewers, after watching that report by Sheikh Muhammad, and he mentioned lots of interesting points there. One of those was about discipline and another was about reading Quran in the month of Ramadan. Those two put together, when we are in Ramadan and we are reading the Quran, it requires discipline. It requires us to set times where we can focus on what we are reading. Now, dear viewers, our phone lines are open, so please do call us and join us on the program. Don't forget also our Skype account is open as well, Huda_TV, so do join us on our program. Brother Kareem, if I can turn to you now. We've talked about generosity in some depth now, but I want to talk about generosity with knowledge, because many people, mashallah, Allah has blessed them with knowledge. How can that person be generous with that?
I think it's very important that with knowledge, the first principle is that you realize what we were talking about is that this is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The idea that you can contemplate, that you can actually recollect the knowledge that you've acquired, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you access to these forms of knowledge. So this is a blessing, and then you will be asked about it. The second thing is that the benefits or the blessings of giving out knowledge. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he talks about mu'allimin nas al-khair, those that teach people good in general, any type of good, that the fish and the fish in the seas and the ants in their houses, all of them do istighfar for this person. So you can imagine how many billions of ants and fish. And this is very nice because it gives you this connection. And these hadith, the beauty of this hadith is that it shows you that lots of times on our path we feel that we're alone. But through these we know that the one that does not follow the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're the ones that in this universe, they're the ones that are alone. No matter how many they outnumber us in terms of humans, in general, if you think about the ants alone, that these ants, these are from the soldiers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are from the jund of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So the origin is belief in Allah.
Belief.
And this the ones who don't are the ones who are on their own.
Exactly. The planets, everything believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and everything submits to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and does istighfar and tusabbih lillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The exception to the rule is anything else. And the exception, if we say 7 billion, if all of the people on the earth, 7 billion of them are refute Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're nothing. They don't even make up the fish.
Okay.
So,
that's very true.
So we're talking about Jupiter. I mean, if you get Jupiter as a planet, that's enough. I mean, that's Jupiter comes in and the game's done. Jupiter, millions of Earths could fit into Jupiter. The stars, the moon, everything is submits to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we talk about this, when you teach people good and you guide people, and lots of people talk about this, and we talk about families, one of the most important things to do with your kids is that you teach them Al-Fatiha. Al-Fatiha, this is something, you should not let anybody teach your kids Al-Fatiha. Yes. Al-Fatiha, this is something that they're going to be doing at least 17 times a day. Every single day, inshallah, for the rest of their lives. And you have to be a part of this.
To get the deeds.
To get the deeds and feel the connection. When they feel every time when you die and they pray and they realize that my dad, my mom taught me this. There's this connection that stays with them. It's much bigger than money. Money goes and comes, and but when they know that this is my dad or my mom, they put me on the path to Al-Jannah. This is a connection that doesn't disappear. So in terms of knowledge, we need to give knowledge in all its forms, whether it's teaching people how to read and write, teaching them things in terms of economics or financials. Maybe somebody has some money, they don't know what to do, and this happens a lot. Maybe they inherit some money and they don't know what to do. They've never had this much money, and you have some skills. You go in, and because we've seen this a lot, especially, obviously the lottery is haram, but people get in, suddenly get lots and lots of money. They don't know what to do, and they spend it on nothing, and they get tricked, and they conned, and people steal their money. They need this community to come in and guide them. You have some money, or you don't have money, suddenly your money disappeared. I don't know what to do. How am I supposed to live without this money? People come in and they tell them, well, this is what you can do. A neighbor comes in, you tell them where the supermarket is, and all of these basic things. This is teaching people knowledge. So knowledge doesn't, one of the things that the limitations that limit us from doing most of the good is that we always look at the biggest thing. When you think about teaching knowledge, you think about getting the biggest encyclopedia book and then going and sitting up. And so we say, well, I can't do this. That's too much time. I don't have the skills. I don't have the knowledge. So I'm not going to do anything. Well, the basic things of a neighbor comes in, you tell them, well, this is how this works. This is where your electric meter is. This is basic knowledge. But this is something which without it, they cannot live their life in the best form.
It doesn't have to be religious knowledge.
No,
it can be practical knowledge about how to live from day to day, something that empowers someone to be successful in life.
Exactly.
And also, sorry, but Ali, can we also say that in that case then, in Ramadan, where we're trying to be more generous, that we can actually go around looking for people who are vulnerable or weak, our neighbors or elders, and try to give them some of our knowledge or services that we can offer?
Probably they're around us, and it's just a matter of us being open, willing to see, to feel the needs of the people around us. And it don't have to necessarily be needy in the sense that we think of. It could be me. I could be needy in terms of needing your generosity in any form. Maybe I'm ignorant about a certain way of doing wudu, for example, and you come and you show me the right way to do wudu. So any form of neediness, regardless of socioeconomic status, I think is worthwhile to consider. Now, another thing I'd like to say about this generosity as we start to close down is that essentially, the way I see it, generosity is a virtue that is a child of love. The parent of generosity among all the different virtues, for being merciful towards the people around us, being forgiving towards the people around us. All of these work under the umbrella of love. And so in the relationships that we have, especially those that we see on a day-to-day basis, our colleagues, our family, our neighbors, generosity is just one aspect of expressing love.
Perfect. I really like this, and I think that there is a connection between being generous, being truthful, and being courageous. They're going to find, like, most likely, if somebody is generous, he's not going to be lying at all. He's not going to be a liar. Because, someone who gives from his life, so why would he lie? Somebody who lies, he's afraid. So he's not afraid of anything. He's not afraid of loss. He's always having this motto inside his head, مَا نَقَصَ مَالٌ مِنْ صَدَقَةٍ. He understands this, like, nothing decreases my wealth. If I give it away to Allah, nothing. So he's not going to be afraid of anyone. And the opposite is true. If somebody is stingy or miser, most likely you're going to find him lying.
But Omar, can we connect that with the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, where he said that one who does good deeds leads him to do bir, and the one who does more bir, that will lead him into paradise.
Perfect.
And then he gave us the exact opposite as well. The one who does bad deeds will lead him into doing greater bad deeds, and eventually he will lead himself into the
slippery
hellfire.
slope,
So it's like a conveyor belt theory.
Yes, thank you so much. So this is the point, that generosity, I really like this, Brother Ali, so much. Like, it's really the parent of every other trait. It's very nice. So maybe starting there, it's going to make things easy for us after this.
All right. I want to move into another discussion here. We've talked about generosity with our wealth. We've talked about generosity also with our knowledge as well. But how can we be generous? And I think this is very needy in our times. How can we be generous with our positions of power and our authority? Because unfortunately, you may tend to find people now who are in position of authority and power, they tend to oppress. How can we be generous? Anybody?
I think this brings us to the definition of what generosity is. If you look it up, it talks about giving more than is expected. Okay, so if I'm a civil servant, for example, in a government office, and you come to my office, I'm giving you some service. There's a minimum requirement that I'm supposed to give you. I'm supposed to be, there's a certain measure of politeness I'm supposed to give. I'm supposed to complete your forms, stamp your forms, whatever, and then take your fees, and then you go on. But maybe in my position, I can use it to benefit you more above and beyond. This is what generosity is, going above and beyond the call of duty. So I think your question opens up an understanding of what this means exactly. I think this puts us in a position of looking for opportunities.
Excellent.
In our positions of work, our everyday life, to go beyond what is normally required of us.
Excellent. Brother Kareem, also, that reminds me of the example of Omar. And I think we mentioned this once in one of our programs, that Omar, he was the leader, he was the Amir al-Mu'mineen. But he was seen walking the streets, and he was seen carrying people's luggage, he was seen cooking for people. Wasn't he generous with his authority?
I think it goes back to the idea of that he knows that this is a responsibility. And then the generosity in the position, there's several factors to it. One of them is that they know that this is a position of accountability. It's not a position of honor. So therefore, one of the ways that you can be generous with this position is that if the people don't want you, that you leave it. And this is something which, when people, I can be better, they would never think of the idea of, well, if they don't want me, then I'm leaving it. Okay, whatever. Or if they feel that somebody would do it better than them, then they would let go and give it to another person who is better than them in his position. And this is, when we look at the companions, they would never go and try and get positions. They would get positions because they were qualified for these positions. And this is why you find, for example, in the armies, you'd find an 18-year-old leading an army. Well, he's not the oldest, he's not one of the muhajireen, he's not one of the, he's a new kid, I mean, a sahabi, yes, he's a very big sahabi, he was 18 years old. And then in that army you find Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman, mountains, the biggest sahaba in the army, but he's the most qualified. And this was very normal in terms of letting go of positions. It wasn't about titles. Now this idea of filling up your CV, putting in these titles, so you don't want to let go. It doesn't really matter if you're the best person, most qualified, giving the best. No, I'll do better. Give me more chances. You can say, you can be a subordinate and give the other person a chance to lead. What's the problem? There's not any. In the end, you're doing it for Allah.
I think this behavior is a reflection of the economic system that we're operating in. It forces people to compromise their character in ways that they perhaps wouldn't if it was a more equitable, more just system that we were operating in. But because it's not, people aren't rewarded, there's nepotism, there's all these things. Now I finally have this position, now I have to hold on to it even if I know I'm not qualified.
But that keeps us within the loop.
Exactly.
One of the reasons why you're holding on is because it's unfair. But you're holding on in an unfair way, so you're just increasing the loop.
Exactly.
So it has to break. You break the cycle. You need to go out and say, okay, I'm doing this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا نَقَصَ مَالٍ مِّن صَدَقَةٍ. And it's the same thing. You have to know that when I'm giving up this position, yes, maybe my salary will go down, but I know that I'm doing this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm doing this because this is the bigger good of the company, of the owners, the shareholders, whatever it is, the people who I report to. This is the bigger benefit. So I'm going to cut down on my salary, and I know that I'm doing this for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا تَرَكَ شَيْئًا لِلَّهِ إِلَّا عَوَضَ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا مِنْهُ.
So what about the opposite? I'm sorry to cut you off, Brother Kareem. Like if I see myself that I'm qualified, and maybe the company or the entity that I'm in, it's getting destroyed, and I'm offered to jump in. I'm not seeking this position, but now they are having interviews, and I can enter the interview, and if they accept me, I'm going to go for it. And I'm sure that I have the knowledge, I have the ability, and inshallah, I know that inshallah I'm going to help people from this position. And I'm still helping them in my position. I have no problem if I come back to it, my current situation. So is it wrong, or we can think like it is almost like Prophet Yusuf when he said,
no, taking a better position is good. There's no problem. What we're talking about is that if you're in the position, you know you're not giving, you have no idea what's going on, they just put you in there because maybe your dad knows the owner of the company or whatever. You're in that position and you know that you shouldn't be here, then you need to give room, at least give people space to grow. What they do is that because they're afraid that this person will shine and they will be put on the side, so they kill off anybody else. They're not just bad, they're killing off chances of other people.
Okay.
Moreover, one of the things related to this position is that one of the business cards, because you see this a lot, and then in order to get a business card from someone or somebody to come in and kind of help you out with their name, it's a big deal, and it's as if you're just using a business card, and you just give them a call, tell them. And this is one of the problems. من ذا الذي يشفع شفاعة حسنة فله كفل منها. You need to give this kind of compliment people with your name. There's no problem in this. Nothing will happen to you if you do this. You come into Junaid, big shot TV star. You come and say, I need some help to do this. And you say, well, I'm not going to help. I can't give it. Just give him a call. You know the man. Just give him a call. You're not going to make me get a position which I don't deserve. You're just going to give me a chance to apply. Why aren't we using this position of status to come in and help?
Okay, Brother Karim, if you can just hold your thought. We've got a phone call. This phone call is from Egypt. We have Sister Maryam calling from Egypt. Sister, Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Yes, I'm just calling, listening to your subject about generosity.
Sure.
With wealth and knowledge, and if you're in a position of authority, how you can help. My comment is just that I'm a foreigner living in Egypt. I was recently widowed a few years ago, and in these years that I've been widowed, I have been dealing with authority, and I've been dealing with difficulty, financial difficulty, as well as a foreigner not knowing a lot about Egypt or where to go or what to do. And I have turned to people for help, and I have found no help, either generosity, wealth, wise, it was helping financially, or generosity as far as knowledge, as to tell me where to go or how things work in Egypt or how I can get help. And I've also been dealing with the courts because I have children who are underage, and so I have to deal with the courts. And I found no, actually the authority they use, they actually, instead of using it to help, they use to keep you more oppressed. My comment is just, Huda is one of my favorite channels, and I just would like to make a suggestion. If Huda could be broadcast in Egyptian, in Arabic, because more people need to know what true Islam is and need to follow the Quran and the Sunnah, because I haven't found anyone following what the Quran and what Allah orders them to follow. So just a suggestion, if more people would benefit from Huda being in Arabic, because I know I have benefited a lot. And Jazakum Allah khairan for all that you do.
Okay, Sister Maryam, I'm lost for words.
She broke the table.
I'm lost for words. I was sad, and then I was happy, and then I was smiling, and then I was upset throughout all of what you said. But the first thing I do want to say before I forget is that please do leave your contact details with the channel. And inshallah ta'ala, somebody will contact you and try to help you in the difficult situation that you're in some way. So don't forget to do that. If you have come off the phone, then do contact us back and try to engage with us and leave us your details. That's very important. Secondly, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make your affairs easy. We ask Allah to facilitate the difficulties that you are going through. All of us are here, and we definitely will pray for you. And it's very humbling as well, Brother Ali and everybody else here, how we've been asked as an English-speaking Islamic channel to broadcast in Arabic because somebody feels that the Arabic channels are not doing a good job. It's very humbling and very worrying at the same time.
I'm sure we all are very touched by Sister Miriam, and we're all very appreciative that you called in, Sister Miriam, to share your experience because it's very meaningful to all of us. And we echo the sentiments that Brother Junaid just expressed. And I can relate, maybe you can as well, being a foreigner in Egypt, and me being a new Muslim in particular, coming to a Muslim country to learn about Islam, and I'm seeing some of the things that she's referring to, dealing with government bodies, dealing with the nominal person in the street. Sometimes it can be a bit of a letdown, a disappointment. I mean, we come into Islam, I did, with all these high ideals, and you know, everyone believes as I do and has this energy, but it's, you know, we grow up. We grow up and realize that, you know, we're all human beings. None of us are perfect. And that unfortunately the status of Muslim countries is not as stellar as it once was.
The grass is not green on the other side.
So we have lots of work. We have lots of work not only in Egypt. We don't want to pick on Egypt. There are many Muslim countries that are still developing, figuring out ways to get back to where the Muslim countries once were.
Okay. Excellent. We are coming towards the end of the program. Brother Omar, would you like to add a few words before we conclude, possibly about the phone call, or even about generosity in general?
Well, maybe I would like to comment on the phone call, and it was really heart touching to hear that that the sister didn't see anyone like doing the Islamic behavior, so it was like a shock. No one. So that's really embarrassing to us. So what I can say is that what came to my mind, and if there were any time, I would have asked Brother Kareem to turn the discussion to, okay, we're talking about things here, but how to turn theoretical stuff to practical stuff, how to come to the ground, how to do something on the ground. Because maybe that's very good and it's very beneficial to talk from a TV channel, but what about the real work? How to start doing this? Would we just maybe accept phone calls from people from each country and we start doing something, like maybe small action, and this action can be turned into something beneficial to everyone?
All right, excellent. Brother Kareem, you have the last word. Would you like to just say a few things about generosity or even the phone call, if you'd please?
I think we'd just link them up with the phone call. Obviously, the phone call was kind of a game changer for the episode in general, because the application is very different to what's going on. I think all of the problems that she mentioned were kind of a result of the problems of lack of generosity, whether it's generosity in time, and generosity in general, this idea of iman and belief, whether like Brother Ali was mentioning, this idea that foreigners, and this is the whole concept of me feeling that I'm better because I'm born in a certain country, or these are things which, this is jahili. You should, whether Muslims, non-Muslims, they come into a country, they should be welcomed, and they should be, and this is, I think this is a very important concept. So one of the things that misconceptions is that we apply this generosity only to Muslims. This isn't the hadi of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ كان أجود الناس بالخير, in general, to everyone. Muslims, non-Muslims, even his enemies, he was generous to them. And this is something that we need to elevate ourselves from this materialistic, capitalistic ideology into something much superior, much higher. We need to have iman for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need to know that that in everything that we give to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will be rewarded to us. Our time, our wealth, whatever it is, we need to focus on this. And this is a very good month for us to revise, to sit down, to look upon how much in every day you should sit and you should have a list of things that you have done for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether you've given up time, wealth, and I think this is a good starting point for us to make a change, small blocks, and inshallah the whole ummah gets up by its people.
Okay, excellent. On that note, let's conclude, and thank you, Brother Omar. Thank you, Brother Ali. Thank you, Brother Kareem, also for coming to the program as well. Dear viewers, we've come to the end of our program here, and what a beautiful discussion on the topic of generosity. It's important for us to note that the Prophet ﷺ did teach us that when we die, everything is definitely going to come to an end, except for one of three things. And the Prophet ﷺ said that if you have left behind a charity, a sadaqah jariyah, then while you are inside of your grave, then the good will be accumulating and you will enjoy that inside of your graves. The Prophet ﷺ said if you left behind any kind of knowledge that people read or listen to or benefit from, then while you are in your grave once again, you will accumulate good deeds. And finally, the Prophet ﷺ, he did teach us that if you leave behind a pious son or a daughter, and while you are in your grave, your son or your daughter is praying, is doing good things, then you will also get the reward of those good things. And before I conclude, also, once again, Sister Maryam, please do leave your contact details with the channel. If you are unable to do that, then you can also contact us on our Facebook page as well, and we will try our very best to help you. Dear brothers and sisters, today we are inside the month of Ramadan. It's time for us to be generous. It's time for us to care for other people. In the time of Umar, when he was ruling, he would cry, and people would ask him, why are you crying? And he would say, because I fear that Allah is going to ask me about a cow that's in my land somewhere and has been treated unjustly. That's a cow. What about us, Muslims, non-Muslims, human beings? On that note, I'd like to conclude and thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you on our next episode. So until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
In the name of Allah we are born, in His name we live, and in His name we die, here and there. Our souls prostrate to their Creator with humbleness and piety, and creatures do zikr all the time, here and there. Humans circumambulate the Kaaba while migrating birds stretch forth their wings, finding their way by Allah's mercy, here and there. Us to travel, seeking knowledge, while exploring Allah's miraculous creation, and there. La 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 la.